there, my name's Jill Tiny. I'm from Collaboration Global, and this is our podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. I'm going to be interviewing some of our members from Collaboration Global, and they're going to be sharing with you their extraordinary lives. Although they would probably believe they're just normal, everyday, average humans, but they are extraordinary. A bit like you and me. We all have our story to tell. We've all been through difficult times, and we've come out the other end having learnt an extraordinary amount about ourselves that we can share with others. So I think you'll find lots of things that will resonate with where you've been in your journey as well. I look forward to seeing you on the other side. Hello there, and welcome to Collaboration Global's podcast, Being Human, Hidden Depths. And I'm really pleased to announce that we have today Charlie Whyman with us. And she has been a brand new member, only been with us for a few weeks. And it's just lovely to have you with us, Charlie. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So first and foremost, your thing that we're all very excited about. So the rest of the community are like, oh, we've got somebody in the community that is really a whiz at marketing. So tell us first and foremost, what was your journey into the marketing field?
Oh, how long have you got?
Okay.
It's one of those that everybody's just like, so how did you end up doing what you're doing? It's like, so I originally studied engineering. I did not study marketing. I've never actually studied marketing formally. And I was working in the NHS, and I was looking after a portfolio of innovation projects. And one of the project managers, her husband had a company. It was an engineering company that used to sell a laser scanning technology with software, and they were looking for somebody to come and help them with their marketing. And when I left university, so I didn't finish my engineering degree, I was just a bit curious as to what else I could do. I lived in Sardinia for 18 months and started my first business, which was making and selling olive oil, which I then combined with loads of other sort of artisan Sardinian foods, which I used to sell on market stalls and in delis and restaurants and things like that in the UK.
Wow.
So that was kind of my first experience of marketing, although I never acknowledged that as marketing experience. And then working with the projects at the NHS, I was involved in some pretty significant events, both national and regional. So I think that the person that knew me, she was like, okay, you are obviously quite good at marketing. You see it in a very different way. So she saw me as quite a big asset for her husband's company. So anyway, I just went to have a chat with him just to see whether or not it would be interesting. And I got the job, and I was there for 6 years. Mm-hmm. And I went from being the marketing assistant, which is what I started with. And then within about 2.5 years, I was the appointed global head of sales and marketing, sort of looking after for international offices. We had an office in North America, which I helped set up, in South Africa, which I sort of helped develop. And so, North America, South Africa, Australia, and obviously in the UK. So great experience. It was wonderful. I did so many fun things working there. And then when I left, somehow managed to get a job as the head of marketing for a group of companies that looked at the global shipping industry. And I think when I started working there, I was there for just shy of a year, made me realize, you know what, I really want to work with more companies and help them with their impact. So that gave me the inspiration and courage, I guess, to say, right, I'm going to quit and then figure out what I'm going to do, which is what I did.
That's a scary thing, isn't it? I love that. I mean, I would always recommend people to kind of go down to part-time or, try and sort of slow it down and then take a little step forward. But you took a giant leap. So well done you. That's amazing. It's kind of like feel the fear and do it anyway, really, isn't it?
That's me. Yeah, that's what I do. I act first, or agree to doing something first, and then think about it afterwards, because I don't know, I just think sometimes your thoughts can stop you doing the things that will help you move forwards. So I've got quite good at not acknowledging those thoughts at the start of things and then just going for it. But I mean, that job, there was no way I could have done that part-time. It was a very intense, high stress, high pressure job.
Yeah, you had to
take
that. Say that. I remember I went through, I chose 1 year, a whole year I was going to do it, to say yes to everything that people, and they kind of cottoned on pretty quick, because they were, do you fancy it? Yep. You don't know what it is yet? Yep. Okay. And I found myself doing some really scary things and traveling halfway around the world and all sorts of stuff that I'd never done on my own. And there's me on stage and I'm talking to people, and it's like, you learn so much, you take on so much. But I thought after a year, I'm like, this is a bit exhausting. I'm living life too fast. I'm just going to, listen next time. What is it? Okay, maybe I'll do it rather than committing too much. So I have full admiration for you going, I can do this. No problem. That's fine. So you must have found that space of like, marketing is my thing. Marketing is what I'm good at. You can look at somebody else and go, you talk marketing, but you're not being marketing. And this is who I am. Is that what it felt like? The jigsaw puzzle was fitting together nicely.
No, not really. It's only until recently, and by recently I mean since March. So we're in June now. So the last few months, I really struggled to identify as being a marketer.
Okay.
Because I think from an early age, marketing to me was all about manipulation. It was all about convincing people that they wanted something that they didn't necessarily need, and I'd given it that label. So I didn't want to ever acknowledge myself as a marketer, because I think I always had that perception that everybody also thought that marketers were going to do that. And I've been burned by marketing agencies and freelancers in the past that basically tell you that they're really good at something, but then the reality is that they don't quite deliver. Really and you know what, I thought about that and I was like, you know what, it seems like that's a rite of passage. If you're in business, then you have to go through that pain of working with somebody that isn't as genuine or that doesn't do a good job. And I think because I do have very high standards, so I think I'm not very good with people saying that they're good at something and then they don't deliver what's good. But I do acknowledge that my version of good is probably other people's excellent. Cool. So that was a bit of a self-awareness thing that I went through a few years ago.
Right.
And yeah, I think I really struggled to acknowledge myself as a marketer. And I think in the same way that when my boss came to me and she just said, this was years ago, you are our best salesperson in the company. We want to put you in a formal sales role. And I really resisted. I had a lot of resistance around that. Now, my dad had a car business, Ford dealership when I was growing up. So sales for me was like, we used to employ a car salesman. We used to call him Trevor Two Suits because he only owned two suits. And he was your stereotypical car salesman. He could convince you that you wanted a car when you didn't want the car. So I was like, oh, I don't want that label. I'm not a salesperson. But then I think, again, it's that soul searching. I was just like, you know what, actually, my dad was an excellent salesman, but he never convinced anybody that they needed something. It was always about asking them questions and understanding what they needed. Yeah. Even if it meant that he didn't sell the premium product, he was always very committed to making sure that people wanted, what they needed. Yeah. And it was all about the relationship because, obviously having a small local petrol station, service department and car dealership, he relied on that repeat business and people keep coming back to him. So I think, again, with a bit of soul searching, I was like, hang on a minute, sales isn't the sales that I had in my mind. It was actually about building relationships. And that was why I was very good at it, because I'd spent the time building those relationships with people, which again is also marketing. So, so for the first 2.5 years of my business, I called myself a LinkedIn specialist. So it was all about LinkedIn because, again, purely by chance, I was just using LinkedIn and just kind of figuring it out and just doing stuff, and it worked. So then I thought, oh, well, this is working. Let me do it more. Yeah. So I became very good at LinkedIn. And then when I set up my business, everybody kept asking me about how do I do what you did on LinkedIn and what you do on LinkedIn. So I was like, oh, I'm onto something here. So I put together an online course. I started working with clients about it, and it's just kind of built up from there. But I never really acknowledged that actually marketing and business development is what I actually love it. I love helping people realize that it is fun. It can be fun, and it can work in a way that people find it fun. Because I think if you're a consultant or if you're responsible for your own sales and marketing, you have to find a way to make it fun. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so basically, although you have accepted the title of marketer or marketeer, actually what you're doing is you're helping people and you're building great relationships, and it just happens to do that you're doing it through the marketing. And there are so many people out there that say they have a business but they can't sell and they can't market because they like doing the doing of what their business is. If you go back to the E-Myth, you know, the famous book about the guy that the lady that was selling the pies, that's what she loved doing, selling pies, and business wasn't her thing. So we're all in that space, aren't we? There are a lot of people out there that want to do the doing but don't like to do the selling. And when they see it selling, like you did with the car sales, it's like, oh, I don't want to push, I don't want to make people buy what they don't want to buy, they might not want to buy from me, I don't really. But actually, if you reframe that and say, well, I'm helping people, I'm building good relationships, of course you want to do that part of the business. That's the magical part. So you kind of realized early on. I love the fact that your dad was had a car showroom, because that is really the cutting edge of perfect sales. It's like the epitome of, you know, if you're good. Did you know that the best salesman in the Guinness Book of Records was the car showman?
Really?
Showman. Yeah. and how he did it, he used to sell. So he'd chat to these people and he'd find out over the course of time, when he was talking about the cars, what was their birthday, when was their anniversary. And every month he would send them a card, in the good old days before email. And it'll be happy Labour Day, happy, July the 4th or whatever. There's an excuse every single month to send somebody a card. And of course, most people over the course of 2 to 3 years need another car, a used car, but they would go back to him because, oh, he's that nice man that, you know, so the relationship was built. He didn't just do the sale and he'd forgotten about them. He kept them warm until they needed the next car, and then they would come back to him. So
that's actually how I got my first car, because I was very privileged, very fortunate, because Dad had the garage when I was 17 and obviously desperate to learn how to drive. I couldn't drive any of the fleet cars with work because it was, you know, I was a 17-year-old. I hadn't passed my driving license at that point. And he got me, it was a 6-year-old, you know, Ford Ka, or KA, however you call them.
Right, yeah.
You know, way back
so
when.
Cute,
going back a few years now.
Mine was a Ford Escort. I had a Ford Escort.
There we go.
My very first car.
I love it. I think when you start talking about like first cars and everything, you like get old woman fuzzy, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's a great experience. It's like that first
remember the number
freedom,
plate,
isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, weirdly, no, I can't remember the number plate. You put me on the spot there. I was like, what? No, I don't remember. It'll come to me later. But it was a 6-year-old, like pristine Ford Ka. And the deal was that I was allowed my own car, provided that I would drive my brother to school every morning.
That's the deal.
Obviously, I'm myself.
Yeah.
I was like, done. That's a deal.
Yeah.
But the car came because it was a little old lady that bought the car brand new from my dad. And when she came to sort of like hang up her keys and didn't want to drive anymore, she sold it back to my dad.
Oh,
and my dad was like, so he actually had that car for 6 months before my 17th birthday. So he just kept hold of it because he's like, this is perfect for me. So, and nice. I think as well, like, now I'm talking to you about it, I remember, so my dad used to be a racing driver. He raced Formula 3 and Formula Ford, and I have some really cool photos of him. And he's insanely competitive, which is where I get my competitive nature from.
It helps.
It does help. And he was always like, you know, you've got to drive a car that makes you feel good. And I think as well, it's that kind of relationship building, but based on the emotional drivers of why people buy. Yeah. And I think as well that's like, especially as a young impressionable girl that dotes on her dad, it's like kind of, you know, oh, that's how you do it. That's really cool. So yeah, I think it for me is a wonderful experience because it's just sales and marketing. They're just labels at the end of the day.
Yes. And I think when you can tune into the fact, when people say to me that they haven't got any clients or anything, and I say, look, how dare you not get your message out there, because you're brilliant. You can transform people's lives. Why would you not tell them? They're like, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. And it's like, you're just helping people. You're being, you know, and most people that have got this kind of, I want to say softer edge, but it's not the right expression, but they've got this kind of softness about them where they want to help people and they're really passionate about helping people, but the money side of things, they've got a poor relationship with money, and they don't feel like they can sell themselves because they're putting a price on the value of what they're offering, and they find that the difficult thing to do. Where in marketing and sales, presumably you're able to give your clients that, well, you know, if you work with me in the past, this is what I've done with other clients and they have increased their income by this percentage or this amount. So they've got this little gauge of like, well, okay, if I work with her, then my business is going to get better, in which case the money I spend with her is an investment because I'm just going to be getting more anyway. Why would
I think
you
that's
not
the same with marketing anyway. Many people see marketing as a cost, not as an investment. And like advertising, it's a cost, not an investment. I think if you could just change the way that you think about that, you can really approach it in a very different way. The other thing is that if you make an investment, so if you invest in stocks and shares, you're going to take responsibility and ownership of the fact that you've invested in those stocks and shares because you expect to get a return from it. So you keep an eye on it and keep an eye on what's going on. With marketing, you see it as a cost. So as soon as you've given away that money, you've paid your invoice to somebody else. It's like, right, okay, I've released.
My responsibility is gone.
Ownership and responsibility.
Good point.
So it's that, again, it's just those little mindset shifts that you can make to really buy into it. But on the subject of pricing, you know, I really struggled with that. So I can sell $1 million+ laser scanning systems and equipment and things like that. No problem. Happy days. Put a price on the stuff that I've created myself. I struggled so much for that. And I've had quite a lot of help around it. And I think if that's something that you struggle with, I empathize so much because it is really difficult. And I think it's because you, I don't know, there'd probably be a lot of science behind it, but I think, and especially it's a very British thing that we undervalue what we know. And it's that kind of curse of knowledge, isn't it? You know, just because it's natural and it's obvious to us, we don't necessarily appreciate that other people don't know what we know. So you underplay it massively.
Yeah. I think it's understanding what your worth is. I remember going to a training once and somebody was worried about how much they were going to charge. And she said, I think I'll let people pay me what they think I'm worth. And we're like, really?
Dangerous game to play.
And then it was like, well, at the moment, I charge people £60 an hour. So I'm sitting in the audience, right? I'm like, oh, God. So I kind of said, okay, so what do you do? You know, so I'm the coach. I said, so would it be fair to say that sometimes when you coach people, you've been able to turn their life around and maybe help them and maybe transform the way they see their world? Oh, yeah. I've had people say this, it's just changed the world. And somebody else was ready to commit suicide and I was able to share. I said, so hang on a minute. You're charging £60 an hour for something that can transform somebody's life. I pay £60 an hour to someone to clean my oven.
Yeah. I was talking to my other half because somebody bumped into my car yesterday, which
literally bumped in.
Yeah, they let their handbrake off and rolled into the back of my car, but luckily they were decent human beings and left a note to say who it was. But it's like, you know, if you're looking at labor from your mechanic, they would charge you for the materials, but their labor is like you're looking at £90 to £100 an hour to fix a car, you know. And yes, a car needs to be safe and it needs to be working, but you know, in the same way that your mind, you know, if you're looking at coaching or anything to do with mindset, your mind needs to be working, needs to be active. And I think it's that we as human beings, we always fear loss more than we value what we can gain.
Yeah.
But we don't always fear or acknowledge the loss around us because of the self-limiting beliefs or the way that we think and the way that we behave. Because I had a bit of a wobble. I had a major wobble.
Go for it.
In my career years ago. And you know what? I went to see a therapist because I didn't know how to handle the situation.
Yeah.
And I'm highly empathetic. So I kept giving these people reasons and letting them off the hook for their behavior. Yeah. And making that story in my head. So I went to see this therapist and she's just like, okay, cool. Where has all of this come from? And it was all, you know, obviously you track it back from years and other things. But I was like, you know, hang on a minute, just because like you can't control how other people behave, but you can only control how you behave and acknowledge the things that you were doing. And it took me a while to actually come to terms with the fact that it was not my problem, it was their problem.
Yeah, true, right?
It was their problem. And I think I just acknowledged that it was a toxic environment. It was making me behave in ways that didn't represent me in the right light either. So, you know, I mean, it was time for me to go and change. And that was one of the best decisions that I'd made. I think, as devastating as it felt at the time.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think we can all identify with that. I know I've worked for clients, in one in particular that I used to travel quite a long way to go to on a regular basis, and I justified it to myself because I was helping the staff, even though he was the most obnoxious person in the world. And in the end, I'm like, I know the money's good, but I can't hack this anymore. I've got to say no. And he was like, what? Why are you leaving? And I'm like, because this isn't working, And I thought, at the end, I'm like, this is all about him. It's not about me. I've done my best. I've tried and tried and tried. And I've looked to see ways I could, make it better for the whole organisation. And you kind of, at one point, you've got to go, no, that's it. I can't do that. For your own self-preservation, you can't, as you say, be around toxic people. It doesn't serve you at all.
I think it's the same with coaching and being paid as a coach. I mean, I don't like calling myself a coach. I think, and again, because one of the first clients that I worked with, she worked with a business coach who basically told her that if she wanted to generate passive income, which we all know is a load of rubbish, if she wanted to generate passive income, then she needed to create an online course. And she was an interior designer, so she wanted to teach people how to be excellent in, self-made interior designers. And she put together this course. She'd run it as a beta test, so she got like 30 people onto this beta test.
Wow. But
for free. And then she ran this course. It was a fantastic course. It was very well put together, very, very professional. And then she spent over £3,000 in adverts on Facebook. But obviously, because she wasn't a marketer, the adverts weren't hitting the mark.
Yeah.
So she generated 0 sales.
Oh, wow.
And was completely disillusioned. But the business coach didn't set her expectations in terms of what marketing would be required in order to sell a course, or even that you could sell a beta course and sell it. You didn't have to do it for free.
Yeah.
And then just kind of left her to it. Didn't acknowledge that this woman was in pieces because she just, she'd invested $3,000 in the award-winning business coach, and then all of this money in ads, and she was just like kind of lost and not really sure where to go. And I've heard so many people tell very similar stories about working with a business coach that doesn't help them on the marketing side.
Yeah.
And part of me just wants to kind of like go, oh, that's awful that you spent all that money on a business coach. But a business coach is not a marketer.
No, absolutely. I would never dream of, I would tell people that what's worked for me, possibly, but generally as a coach, you're not supposed to be telling them what to do. It's like, well, let's unpack all the options and find out, and then consider, and then go and see that specialist and go and talk to that person and get it set up. That's awful.
Exactly. And I think it does come back to that ownership and accountability thing. And I'm like giving a few things away. I don't know when this is going to be published, but I'm writing a talk at the moment. And I relate marketing to climbing up to Everest Base Camp, because that was something that I did 2 years ago. And there was one specific woman on that trek that didn't train. She didn't have the right equipment. She hadn't prepared. She didn't know what to expect. And even though she made it there and back, she did not have a very good time doing it. She was injured, and she made everybody else miserable too. Like, it was really difficult to keep, sort of morale, like to not get wound up in that negativity. Yeah. And so like we were there with a guide going up the mountain, and she was like, well, the guide never told me that I need to do this. And I was like, well, it's not the guide's responsibility to tell you how to train to do this hike. They don't know what level of fitness you're at. They don't know what type of training that you like doing and all these things. And I was like, you know what, actually, a guide is a bit like a business coach. The business coach is there to help guide you, ask you the right questions and help you succeed.
Yeah.
But in the same way, so like I've done business coaching in the past, but I don't brand myself as a business coach, but really I'm a marketing coach. Like, I have a lot of experience in business through like working with my dad and helping him raise his business, doing my own business, like 15 years ago. 15 years ago. And then now the experience I've done with this one, but then also because I'm good at asking questions, that I think it helps you with that. But if somebody comes to me for business coaching now, I just basically say, no, I'll give you some marketing coaching, but not business coaching.
Yeah.
Because again, I've always realized that some of the business coaches that I've had, what they actually want is marketing coaching.
Yes. Yeah, it's a fine line, isn't it? It's because sometimes they don't even know what they want. It's like when they go and see a sales trainer or something like that, and actually you go, well, it's not the sales, it's your mindset you need to work on first. So it's like unpacking what's actually required, because people come with well, I think this will solve my problem. My problem's out there, and quite often the problem is going on in here. So you kind of, there's a double whammy going on. But I've always been of the opinion that I would much rather get my clients to, try some stuff, get the basics done that we all know we need to get sorted, and then go and see that specialist. And I wrote actually a post on LinkedIn yesterday about if you've got the same business coach for a year, you've probably had them too long.
That's a good post. I will go and hunt that one down.
The whole point is, after about 9 months, you should have given them enough and got them to a certain level where they don't need you as a crutch anymore. And if they're still using you after a year, it's like, well, no, either you go and find another coach, or, try it on your own for a bit and then come back later, come back in 6 months, come back in a year, and then we'll carry on, because there's only so much you can do. I've actually had to sack clients before because we've been together for about 18 months. I'm like, you ain't doing what, you sit here every day, every time we meet, and you say, oh, this is fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Fantastic. And the next month it's like, no, you haven't had time. And all of the issues that you kind of go, well, I can only help you so far, but it's like an alcoholic. You've got to go and help yourself.
Yeah, I don't know. So like coaching is a bit like therapy, isn't it? To a point, we
always have a box of tissues handy.
I know. I think it's like emotional. I think we all need to acknowledge like what we need therapy for and what we need coaching for. I think absolutely. For me, like my experience with coaching is always been an interesting one, because I was a terrible manager. I'm going to hold my hands up. An awful manager. So I used to manage a team of technical engineers, essentially, and they essentially were responsible for selling. So that company, it was like, the traditional engineering tech company that's like, oh, our products sell themselves. We just need to put them in front of you. That doesn't work. But the products were so good, and it was literally a case that we just needed to put them in front of people. But the real genius was that because the engineers went to show the clients how it worked, because they weren't salespeople, they weren't trying to sell. They're actually really good at selling, because they
just being helpful.
They could explain the benefits of the product, and that they had a lot of empathy and credibility with the client, so it worked beautifully. So I was responsible for managing these people, and even though they were great salespeople, they had very little commercial awareness. So we found out that they were actually telling people what we got for free. So even though we got it for free, there was still a cost involved, because we had to train and support and everything else. So they saw it as a black and white arrangement, when really it wasn't. So I was like, oh, hang on, like we need to alter this. But then also when it came to doing stuff, because I'm a bit of a rebel in the way that I do things, a bit of a maverick. I love it. And I'm sure it comes as no surprise to most. So if somebody tells me that you've got to go from A to Z, I'm like, oh, yeah,
really?
You could go from A to M and skip out all of these steps. You don't need to do this. And I think this was all part of the reason why I was never going to become a great engineer. Follow the steps. And then the chair breaks because you haven't put the bolt in the right place. But I don't know, I'm very good at seeing big picture things, identifying gaps and opportunities and things like that. Whereas when I work with technical people, they need to go A, B, C, D through the process. So even if you don't need to do one step, they need to do that because it's part of their personality. They're completer finisher type characters. So my experience back then, it was like, I just didn't understand that they learned and they responded in a different way. And I was just like, why are you not getting this? And I got really frustrated with them. It wasn't their fault. It was my fault. And I was hit by a car while cycling home from work. And I was very fortunate. I'm quite well built. So I was very fortunate. I didn't break anything, but I did damage my back, and I was rowing at the time. So I couldn't row anymore, which was quite devastating. And so instead I trained to be a coach. So I thought, right, I can't row, but I can coach. So I did a coaching course. And that's where I learned. I was like, oh, so people do learn in different ways. And I also learned why I got so frustrated with my coach, who wasn't a very good coach, who tried to get everybody to do it in the same way. So if you tell me to do something, and this is why I didn't get on very well at school, if you tell me to do something, I will struggle to acknowledge it. Whereas if you show me how to do something, or if you give me the outcome and let me loose on it, I will learn a lot faster.
I love that.
And that's how I like to learn. So when I learned how to row originally, I was literally just sat in a boat in Italy, didn't speak the language, they didn't speak English, and it was just like, right, just move your arms.
See how you go, see how you get on.
So my technique wasn't amazing, but you know what, I learned how to row.
It's literally sink or swim, wasn't it?
I said as well, like those Italians learned some very colourful language because they entered me into a race. I think I'd only been in a racing sculling boat about 3 times before, and this race was in a marina.
Oh my goodness.
It was so nerve-wracking, but yeah, it's a good experience. Anyway, yeah, so and then I went from having this awful coach when I moved back to the UK, rowing coach. I had a wonderful rowing coach he was brilliant. Like literally I loved everything he said and he did, but also he was insanely competitive.
Well, the like goes to like, doesn't it? That's the nice thing if you're competitive as well.
But I think as well, and he got everybody's needs in the boat. So he understood that people learned in a different way. He understood people had different emotional needs, because also if you imagine coaching a women's rowing squad, then you're going to get all sorts of emotional craziness from time to time. So you need to factor those things in. So when I did this rowing coaching qualification and then started to observe the difference in coaching styles, I started to pour into books about sports coaches and sports management and things like that. And especially reading, so if anybody listening to this has never read it, I highly recommend you read it. It's a book called Winning by Clive Woodward. So Clive Woodward, it is fantastic. Even if you're not a rugby fan, read this book. It's brilliant. So I couldn't get enough of it, and I took all of what I was learning from a sports coaching point of view and applied it at work. And it completely changed. I was like, people are doing stuff.
Wow.
I'm not getting any of this resistance anymore. So it was a real turning point for me. And it was brilliant. So I think for me as well, it was that difference between leadership and management. Because again, one of the beauties of working for a small company is that you can get stuck into every aspect of the business. So I was sort of in part of leadership before I set up my business, part of leadership teams for the best part of 6 years. And it's amazing. Like I love being part of the leadership team, but there is a very big difference between leading and managing.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we find. We've got a leadership specialist in Collaboration Global, Gina Gardner, and some of the things that she kind of, when she presents to us or does any of the 10-minute teachers or anything in the academy, you kind of go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's like all of a sudden you can see that there's a mild difference between, as you say, managing and actually being a leader. And I've had to step up into a leadership role. I've always been what I consider to be a supporter and nurturer. The Roger Hamilton wealth dynamics, have you come across that?
Yes. Yeah.
So I was or am a supporter.
Okay.
And I always saw that as like, oh yeah, that fits with me. I help other people. I'm a supporter. And then he actually explained that no, this was the one profile that actually should be leader. And a lot of the others are supposed to be leaders as well. We said that was the one that was leader, but we couldn't have leader because it felt like it was too central to everything. So we wanted it to be, so we chose it to be supporter, but actually that's what good leaders do.
Which do you think I am?
Out of the 12, well, you're a little bit star. You're a little bit, I guess you have a supporter in you as well. I'm just trying to think, what's the visionary at the top? I don't know.
Yeah, star was my big one.
Yeah. I haven't gone too far into it, I must admit, but it kind of shines out.
Yeah.
You're twinkling over there. So let's talk about some logistics. So a lot of people that are interested in marketing and advertising and sales and all the rest of it. And if you're in your business, you've probably dabbled and tried different things. Now, somebody said to me recently, unless you are over the VAT threshold, do not go anywhere near advertising. Not heard that one before.
Interesting.
And other people have come along and said, well, unless you know what you're doing and you know where to shove your pixel, then don't go down the Facebook route of advertising. What's your opinion, your thought process, or your how's it been demonstrated to you around advertising versus...
you've poked the bear.
Do you want me to get your soapbox ready?
So I love the speak of advertising. A lot of people resist advertising because they think it's like the devil in the sunk cost. Me included. I've spent countless amounts of money over the years on advertising that has been a sunk cost. And again, it does come back to that ownership and responsibility. It depends on who you're working with. So there are two very different sides of advertising. One is the technical side, setting it up, making sure that your pixels are all installed in the right places, and making sure that you've got the logistics and targeting and everything set up. And then the other is around copy.
Right.
And again, this is another reason why I've been stung, because I was taught or rather I specifically learned how to do Facebook ads. Google ads I dabbled with, got some results from, but I would have to work with somebody else if I was to do them again. Facebook ads, I don't have the patience to run Facebook ads. I'm not a completer finisher character, which is why I don't do done for you marketing service for people. Right. So you do need somebody that is a very completer finisher thing, and somebody that's got a very good eye for copy that converts.
Yes, that's the
so sometimes working with somebody that's not your creative, but somebody that's a little bit more technically minded can actually be a huge benefit when it comes to advertising, because they think about things from a very results driven approach. So yes, you do need to make sure that your pixel is installed everywhere, but really it's quite easy. Like, you either get your web developer to install it in one place on your website, or you do it yourself. And there's loads of help and support out there in order to do it. I've never come across anybody that talked about the VAT threshold to do it. However, saying that, a lot of people jump to advertising because they think it's an easy way of marketing. So they think they throw a load of money at it. It's just like employing a salesperson, throw a load of money at the problem. I don't have to think about it, but I can blame something when I don't get leads and sales.
Yeah. Ownership, responsibility coming back.
So it's the scapegoat. So what I did, so when I launched my first online course, I was told that you've got to advertise. It's the quickest way of getting leads and the quickest way of getting sales. And I did fall into that trap. So I spent loads of money on Facebook adverts. But what I did was the big mistake that I did was I tried to scale before I had the foundations in place.
Right.
So the point about the VAT threshold is a really interesting one, because again, a lot of people think that sales marketing is a bit like spray and pray. So you've got to get your message out in front of a big enough audience and a few people are going to hit. So turn it around. What if you could get your message in front of 1/10 of that audience, but convert half of them? And then the other thing as well is that if you're doing advertising and spending loads of money on ads, then you've got to be able to deal with them, or deal with the leads when they come in. So if you're selling time for money, do you have the capacity to be able to handle all of those leads and serve everybody at the same time? Or is there a different approach that would work for you? So I think a lot of people just think, all right, okay, I'm going to go down the advertising route, because like with the automatic assumption that it's not going to work for them, or that you're only actually going to get 1 or 2 leads. And then that's, it's still going to be worth it because you'll have an ROI, but really there may have been a better way of doing it. Yeah.
But it's understanding your options, I think, isn't it? I mean, the person that said you've got to be over the VAT threshold, I think was coming from the philosophy of, you've got to try a lot of stuff and you're going to lose a lot of money. But when you hit pay dirt, it's worth it. But if you're not even over the VAT threshold, if your income isn't sort of 100K, then you're not going to have the spare capacity. You're not going to have the spare cash in order to make mistakes. So it's
I think it depends on your business. I mean, I used to work for a business that turned over 10 million a year, and they, we were operating on a very tight budget. We didn't have the cash to be losing money on or testing things or doing any of that. But we did spend an awful lot of money on events and trade shows. So the argument is, what
horses for courses.
It is horses for courses, because also how do you want to do sales? Like, the businesses that I've always worked for and the business that I run now, it's very relationship driven. It's very hard to form a relationship with somebody over an advert. It is possible, but it's very hard. So, and I think where I said, so I tried to get somebody else to run my Facebook ads for me because I was getting results, but I just didn't have the patience to do them. But you know what, there's a lot of people charging a lot of money and aren't very good at doing Facebook ads. They'll tell you all the right things and lead you down a garden path. But the reality is that, so I haven't quite cracked that nut yet in terms of saying what is the successful formula for hiring somebody that's good at Facebook ads. I'd say look for somebody that can demonstrate results.
Yes, always.
Also look for somebody that's not afraid to spend their own money on Facebook ads first. It's very easy to spend somebody else's money. I mean, I've spent a lot of my own money on Facebook ads and I've learned the hard way.
That's the best example, really, isn't it? Is if somebody's walking the talk and they've been there and they've done that, and you've understood why it worked, why it didn't work, rather than just that happened, that was great, and it was an accident, and what actually was the reason that everyone started buying like that. One of our collaborators, he's got what he calls a rain man working with him, who just tweaks the message, tweaks the, when it goes out and how it goes out and where they're marketing to. And it's like it's like a scientific thing. And because he's that way inclined, it's slowly. He said, so we did it last week and we only got, 70 results, but, the following week, then they got another 120. And then bit by bit, it's kind of like, this is what's working. And, how many people have that diligence? I mean, I'm a bit like you. I'm a big picture thinker and not a completer finisher. I can. It's not my thing. I want to go on to the next bright, shiny object and just, like, what else is there out there? Let me start that. Do I have to finish that? So for the thought of going down that route of trial and error and test and measure, it's kind of like, you're going to make me fill in a spreadsheet, aren't you? I don't want to do that.
Can I share a quick theory with you? Well, it's a quick theory with you because I think you probably have a good opinion on this one. But on the Facebook route, I think it's the same with any kind of marketing. And I recommend that anybody, and this is kind of what I'm trying to achieve with my club at the moment, is that any kind of marketing that you're doing, if you're going to get somebody else to do it for you, make sure you understand the theory behind why you're doing it and be crystal clear on the outcomes that you're getting. So for example, if you're going to start running Facebook ads, make sure your expectations are aligned, that you're not going to get instant results from it. It is something that you will test. That if you start getting great results for the first 3 months, Facebook could change something and, it could drop off a cliff for the next month. Yeah. That's not the fault of the person running the Facebook ads. It's just because there's changing things. The other thing as well is, like, don't work with an agency that claims to be good at everything unless they have a very large staff base, because there are hundreds of marketing disciplines out there. It is so difficult. Like, just take social media as an example. Like, I specialize in LinkedIn because I spend a lot of my time on there. I've got a lot of results myself over the years, and I keep an eye on updates. I'm in a network of other LinkedIn trainers and we share insights and ideas. If I had to do that with every single social media platform out there, I'd never get any work done.
No, of course not. Yeah.
So it's like, yes, I've learned Facebook ads, but that was a while ago.
And
so
it's changed since then,
the algorithm
probably
has changed since then.
Yeah.
So I would have to kind of scrub up. If I was going to run them again, I'd have to scrub up on the updates and the changes. So always, again, ownership and responsibility, come back to that. Make sure you know what you're getting yourself in for and your expectations are firmly aligned, and that you are actively showing an interest in the results that you're getting.
That sounds like pretty much a lesson in life, really, doesn't it?
It does.
It goes all down that route.
Big lesson in life. But the theory that I've got is, because I was doing a bit of reflecting on my own way of doing things and certain things that have happened over the years. And I was recruited as the head of marketing, but I really struggled in that role to start with, because I was recruiting for people in my team, and it was a very insanely hard recruitment process. So I couldn't recruit. The bar was so high, which, like I managed to get the job, which was funny because I didn't actually meet any of the job criteria. They wanted a degree and loads of years of experience, specifically in marketing and all these things. Whereas I looked at the job advert and I was like, I can do that job. I don't have the experience, but I've give it a go.
You went for it anyway, yeah.
But Anna got it.
Good for you.
So my theory is that a lot of people, when they start to recruit marketers into companies, and especially for small companies, hiring your first marketing person is a huge jump, because a lot of people don't value marketing for its worth. And in terms of personality traits, a lot of people think, right, I need somebody super creative. And I need somebody that's a big picture thinker. And I need somebody that's going to implement, that's going to come up with a strategy, and that's going to implement it, and that's going to do this, this, and this. But I'm going to give them no learning and development budget, because the company just doesn't really have a learning and development budget, which is very normal for SMEs. And I'm not saying that everybody's doing it wrong. I'm just saying that it's
just the way it is.
Priorities need to change, especially in marketing, because everything changes so much. But there's a huge amount of pressure for in-house marketers, especially if you are either a 1 or a 2 person team, because you're expected to do it all. And a lot of marketing consultants who focus on strategy aren't actually very good at doing the marketing, because they don't enjoy doing it. Because they're creative, big picture thinkers, but not the doers. And I think a lot of, I used to get frustrated with it, and I was like, hang on a minute, like why am I not enjoying this? This is my job. I should be enjoying it. I was like, no, like for me, it's all about the strategy. I can teach tactics. I love teaching tactics. If it's something new, I love doing it myself and getting involved in it. And I can do it myself, but I have to like really G myself up. And I'm like, right, I'm going to focus on optimizing my website. I'm going to focus on running this campaign and getting it all set up. So I don't think people talk about this enough, is the difference in marketing discipline and also the difference in personality traits. You know, I think part of the reason why I've got to where I've got, without blowing my own trumpet too much, is the fact that I think I studied engineering, so I have that technical capability and insight, but also I am very much a strategist and I think about the big picture. So if I walk into a new company, I can instantly look and just sort of say, all right, there are ways that you could optimize that, the ways you could do that, or, you know, start having a look at different things. Because that's what lifts me up. That's what gets me going. So you sit me in front of a computer and just say, right, implement this new email marketing system and get it going from start to finish. I'd be like, oh yeah, cool. Get involved in it. 5 minutes later, I'd be like, oh. No, it's like I can do it, but I don't want to, you know?
Yeah, I'm like that. I had a client once that was really good at, I said, what are you good at? And she said, conflict resolution. That's what she was known for. In her industry, everybody knew who she was in conflict resolution. I said, oh, that must be really great. So you enjoy your job? She said, no, I hate it. Just because she was good at it doesn't mean to say she enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And in the end, we spent what I thought was the coaching session to get her to work with her partner and to grow the business, actually ended up being me getting her out of the business and the partner taking over so she could go and do something totally different, because she was just miserable in what she was known for. She just didn't like it at all. But I think it's very rare. So this is your USP, your uniqueness, your badge. It's very rare that there are people out there that do have this crossover of technical detail, understand the detail and understand strategy and tactics, and at the same time can see the big picture and can see the vision and are creative in probably the content and things that you write. Most people are separate,
opposite end. And it's the same way that I used to be a bad manager, and I used to try and encourage my technical team to think more creatively and strategically. It wasn't their bag. Like, they weren't skilled in it. It's that competence. They weren't confident and they weren't competent in that act. So if you employ somebody to be your marketing manager, a lot of one person marketing teams are marketing manager, but you say, right, okay, you're responsible for coming up with a strategy. And a lot of these people are straight out of university, and like they've been in a world full of theory, not full of implementation. Like, right, you're going to come up with a strategy and you're going to implement it. You know, they'll probably say yes because they're supposed to, and potentially they want to, because I think you learn this through experience more than anything. But then you soon realize that actually I'm overwhelmed, because you're trying to do everything and you're trying to do the things that you don't enjoy.
And when you first start, you don't know what you don't know. And the more you get involved in something, all of a sudden, especially with social media, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, doesn't it? It's like, where do you, what's the focus and what's the intent and what's the bit that you should be looking at, like this, rather than, it's all too much, I can't cope. It is a minefield. You're in a very competitive market, but I would imagine from what you've told me is it's easier for you to shine because there's so many idiots out there.
Well, I hope so. I think I've only just started acknowledging that I'm a marketer.
Well, let's not put a label on it. We don't like labels.
I know. Well, it's earlier this year I had a bit of a wobble, because I think when my son was born, I was still trying to work through that whole thing. So I never really took any time off, and I was trying to do a lot of things yeah. I mean, to be fair, I didn't have a choice, but I needed to make different choices in order to get. But anyway, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, we'll do that next time.
So yeah, I didn't take a step back, and I didn't have that thinking space. So what I found that I was doing more of the things that I didn't enjoy, and I think as well because I wasn't doing what I'd set out to do. And so I went to see my mum and dad live in Sardinia. They live there now, so that's where that comes from. So I just thought, right, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm just going to run away for 2 weeks. They can look after the baby and enjoy some, grandma and granddad time, and I can just read a book you know, not a business book, but just a book.
Yeah, anything. Yeah.
You know,
and
also like enjoy a bit of time with my son without necessarily thinking that I should, you know, because I think that's what I really struggled with. It's like when I was with him, I was like, oh, I've got to do some work. And when I was working, I was like, oh, I should be with him.
It's a perennial problem. So many people say that. It's the guilt factor that we, as women, we heap on ourselves, don't we?
To be honest, I never saw it as guilt. I think it was just more that I was needed in too many different places. And I wanted to be there. So I wanted to be with my son, but I also wanted to work because, like, let's face it, babies are boring. I'm just going to put it out there. You know,
wait till he starts talking, you'll be fine.
You know, like, and especially now, he's nearly 10 months old now, and he's amazing. But I think as well, like acknowledging the fact that you don't want to be a stay-at-home mum. Like for anybody who wants to be a stay-at-home mum, there's nothing wrong with that. And to be fair, like my hat comes off to you.
Yeah, I did that. You know, first 5 years I was there. But at the same time,
you're amazing, you know, but that's not me.
But at the same time, I couldn't just be, although we still had a business running in the background, but I look back at that time and think, well, I ran the mother and toddler group and I started a ballet school and we used to do all these different things. I was like, we moved house. It's like, yeah, I kind of kept myself busy anyway. So you naturally, if that's your thing and do, you can't help but
find a way.
Yeah, do it as well. But I loved those 5 years, so I wouldn't take those away at all.
Yeah, I don't know whether, like, if I went back and did it at a different time, I think I probably would have given myself a bit more time to reflect on more of what was going on. But yeah, I think I was watching, like, my guilty pleasure is watching Grey's Anatomy at the moment, and it's quite funny because two of the surgeons were basically just saying how much they hated maternity leave, and I was like, oh, it's just so nice because you don't hear that everywhere, and it's nice to, I don't know, like, have other people that empathize with that challenge.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean you love your son and your child any less.
It's one of those, it's just acknowledging what your needs are, and we all have different needs, you know. So I think some women are born to kind of be the nurturer, and don't get me wrong, I got bored with my kids every so often, but I just love the freedom of not being somewhere at a certain time at a certain place, because at that point I had always been employed. But now, as a business owner, it would be a different ball game. I would, you know, want to be working, as you say, and at the same time be needed elsewhere. So it's a huge dilemma. Do you split the childcare with your husband?
Yeah. So I think it's it's like work doesn't feel like work if you're having fun, does it? Really? Exactly. I think that's the thing. But yeah, no. So today, this is my in the office day, and that he's got Ayrton. But I think as well, like with this coronavirus, like I got back from Sardinia, and then I went on a 2-day business retreat with two absolutely wonderful women who helped me acknowledge that marketing was actually something that I had a lot of very strong opinions on, and it was something that a lot of people struggle with. I wanted to help with that situation, and I was so pumped. I was like, oh, brilliant. I mean, to be fair, that was the first 2 days I'd actually spent away from Ayrton. So, like, even though I'd had the 2 weeks in Sardinia with the help from my mum and dad, it was like it was kind of like me and my business, and you know, like just actually having that time to focus. So I was really excited. I'd found a co-working space so I could split home and work, and, you know, just try and find that balance, which I still very much need, I'm not going to lie. And then, coronavirus happened. So nursery was off the cards. The co-working space was off the cards. And because my other half, he has his own business as well, it's like, how do we do this? So we've just had to split it. So I have Ayrton 3 days a week. Franco has Ayrton 3 days a week, and then we have one specific family day, with the acknowledgement that this is not forever. This is just a temporary thing, and we're just going to make it work. So we are making it work, but it's it's hard.
But on the other hand, Ayrton gets the best of both of his parents, doesn't he? Which is lovely. So rather than have one person just trying to do it all and tear the hair out.
I think that's so important to be able to split it. You know, I wrote a post on LinkedIn about, I think it was about a month before Ayrton was born, and I had to run it past Franco. I was like, is this emotional hormonal Charlie talking, or is this normal Charlie? Like, what's going on? and it was about, so the Chamber of Commerce sent me an email inviting me to enter a exclusive women's only business award, and the email was all pink with photos of women in pretty dresses clinking champagne glasses, and I was like, oh no. You know, it's like you can see the veins popping at me. Like I was enraged when I received this, and I was just like, how dare you send me this email? I was like, that's an unfair competition. If I won Entrepreneur of the Year award, let's say, if I entered it, because let's face it, why enter something unless you're going to win it? if I won that, Female Entrepreneur of the Year or whatever, I've not won Entrepreneur of the Year because I'm not going up against all of the entrepreneurs out there. I don't want an award where I'm not going up against everybody else.
Yeah.
So I don't like I don't believe that exclusive women's events are going to help with the diversity and inclusion situation. So I wrote a post basically inviting discussion and just sort of said, look, does anybody else feel the same way? Because I actually feel patronised by being invited to these events. And also, I don't like pink. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I want to dress in frilly dresses in pink and clink the champagne. I mean, the champagne I'll happily take, but anyway, it reached, 800,000 people.
Nice.
And it just went completely bonkers, and it definitely kept me entertained for a while, put it that way. But I think it's that
you hit a nerve, definitely. Yeah.
But also it's like finding new people. I think a lot of people in business, they want to please everybody. And again, this is coming from a place of complete empathy. I've been there, done that, and got the t-shirt. Whereas I think the more you can focus on your people and the people that share your sort of beliefs. I think that's why we always got on, because I think we share a lot of
yes, we do.
a lot of values and ways of doing things.
Well, that's kind of what drew you and us to each other. I can't remember how we connected now. Was it probably through LinkedIn, wasn't it?
It was B1G1. So actually, you met my son there.
I did. I was very impressed that you'd come to this event in London, in the middle of town, with baby in tow. And I think, if that was me, I'd be like, I can't be bothered. It would just be too much of an effort. So I was very impressed with you then, and we only spoke very briefly. But fortunately, you remembered me, and we connected up at a later date. And now I'm part of your community, and you're part of my community. So hopefully, over the next few months and hopefully years, we're going to be able to impart our knowledge and expertise and specialisms into each other's community and support people around that, and obviously share what we do and how we can help each other. So for me to share what you do, this whole podcast has given me amazing fodder, so I can help people to understand what you've been through, how you're coming out the other end, what shaped you, so that we know that, I mean, the quote I wrote down is, my good is other people's excellent. I love that. That is brilliant. You need that stamped on your website somewhere. That's absolutely fantastic. So it's that kind of confidence.
I was like trying to remember. I was like, did I say that?
Oh, you did. I wrote it down immediately. And because you have a standard, and your standard isn't here. Your standard is up here. And that's what I want. I don't know about you, but I get frustrated when people say one thing and then don't, oh yes, I'll do that. And you're like, well, when? Come on, you said you were going to do it by then, and it's 3 days later or 5 days later. And it just, when people book into an event that you've put all the effort into running and then they don't show, it's like, well, why would you not come? You said you were going to come. Did you not put it in your diary? Are you that disorganized that you can't? And I get that life gets in the way for people, and that's it. But in my life, I can't remember when I've cancelled an event. If I've said I'm going, I'm going. And if I'm not sure, if I'm like this, then I will say I'll try and be there, but I don't think I will. Or so if you see me, it's a bonus kind of thing. And it's that kind of level of integrity of being your word. Of sort of being able to step up to, I want other people to come up to me, and I want them to surpass me so that I can then live up to their expectations. So that's why I love your energy, because it's like, I'm damn good. And I'm, it's like, so let me live up to where you are. I want to come up to where you're standing on that ladder. I think it's fantastic. Sorry, go on.
No, go on. I don't want to interrupt your flow.
Well, I was going to just move on. Something you said last time we spoke was that when we talk about collaboration, that's kind of my soapbox, and how the world could be a better place if you all understood how to collaborate. And one of the things that you said was your soapbox is you said, don't get me on blame. Blame just drives me crazy. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of illustrate why that's something that freaks you out. Do you remember saying it, or are you going to say?
Oh, I do. I have. So part of me entering this public speaking competition is I would like to speak a little bit more around the topic of blame, because I see how toxic it is, and I see how it can really destroy, damage relationships, businesses, and just like it's just a very unhealthy way of being and thinking. And so guilt is something that I don't generally feel, because I just think that if you're going to feel guilty about it, then don't bother doing it in the first place.
Wasted emotion. Yeah.
And exactly, wasted emotion. And also I think that a lot of the time when you feel guilty, it's as a result of other people making you feel that way. But that's not blaming them, because you're then taking on that feeling.
Exactly. They can't make you.
Nobody can make you do anything. And I think as well, like with blame, it's well, I read a book, it was a few years ago now, because I was like obsessed with that SAS Who Dares Wins program. So I was like, God,
I love it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And it was with one of the it was called, what's it called now? Extreme Ownership. That was it. And I was like, this book pretty much sums up my whole approach to the subject of blame. And it was basically saying, like, they were special forces in the American Navy, I think. Like, quote me on that. And they were basically saying that, like, if their platoon failed or if something didn't go right, it wasn't their fault. It was as a result of their bad leadership.
Okay.
And I was like, I can't get enough of this book. This is brilliant. And I was just like, actually, yes. Like, if I look at the failing of any person that I've ever managed, it's not because they're to blame. It's because I'm to blame, because I either haven't taught them properly, I haven't given them the tools that they need in order to do their job properly, or I've not recruited the right person for the job.
Yeah.
And generally, I think everything that happens to you. So I come from a family that unfortunately blame crops up every now and again. And I think I look at the results that come from that blame and the things that have not happened as a result of people feeling that blame. And a lot of the time is like blaming themselves for it as well. It's not necessarily blaming others, but blaming themselves. And I just think if you could just turn it around, because I'm very much a glass half full sort of person. I'm like, there's like every single challenge, no matter how awful, there's always an opportunity at the end of it. Always. You just may not see it at that point. So like when I said that I had that awful experience, I was blaming myself all the time. I was like, oh my God, like, what have I done? It must be something I've done. And I was blaming myself for things that I didn't know I was doing, and getting all worked up about it. And I was like, hang on a minute, it's not my fault. But also, if I spend the time blaming myself or blaming other people, that's energy spent acknowledging or blaming somebody that you can't change. You can't do anything about that. But what you can do is move forwards from it. What you can do is release that blame and then take ownership of the situation and just think, right, how can I turn this around? And I'm not saying that this, like, everybody should try and do this for themselves, because it's really, really hard. And it's something that I think you should get help from if you are stuck in that kind of blame cycle.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I remember somebody saying to me once when I was managing a team that, you know, if the team aren't doing what you want them to do, you've allowed that culture to be, you know, as you say, going back to the looking after people, it's your responsibility. So either you haven't taught them enough, you haven't shown them what you expect, you haven't given them the culture for them to excel in what they want to do, and you've allowed things to happen. So every time I get frustrated because, they haven't done that again, or he hasn't done that again. It's like, well, that doesn't help the situation at all, does it? So when a friend of mine was having problems in his relationship with his wife, and I said, look, just go and be the best husband you can be, and then watch her change. You know, rather than go, and another thing she does, and I can't stand it when she does this, and I can't stand it when she does that. So you just go, because what you're saying about her, there'll be things that she's saying about you. So why don't you just step up and be the best husband that you can possibly be, and then you'll see her change. And I kind of experienced that myself. I don't know if you've come across Landmark Education.
No, because I think you told me about that last time, which I've written it down. I haven't done anything with it.
It's a 3-day stint you go on, but I went on one of their courses, and one of the things that I was very good at that I hadn't acknowledged, because again, you don't know what you don't know, and until somebody takes the veil from your eyes and you go, that's what I was doing. I was very good at being in Martyr Mode. When people didn't do what I wanted them to do, so I'll do it then, you know. And it was I was making more work for myself because I had these high expectations, but I didn't communicate them effectively. So my communication wasn't that great, and other people were just getting frustrated with me getting cross with them, and they're like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. So as soon as I took off the martyr cloak and I was able to actually communicate more effectively, all of a sudden it was like joy all round. But until somebody said, do you realise that's what you're doing? I'm like, no. And they said, well, think about it for a minute. Is that what you're doing? Probably. And how's that working out for you? Well, I end up doing it all on my own. So would you rather have them help you? Well, yeah, obviously. So what do you think you need to do? Yeah, I need to be able to communicate. What? Okay. And it's like,
but it is as well, isn't it? It's like communication is so powerful, and like, oh, and I'm saying all of this, and like, I'm not saying as in, oh, I never blame anybody for anything, and you know,
of
I'm
course,
like not
there
Miss
is.
Perfect. You
There's
know,
that natural
I think
thing.
it's that acknowledge that these feelings creep in, because I don't know whether it's human nature. I've just started listening to Brené Brown, who talks a lot about blame and shame, and you know, things, you know, all of these things. So she is very well researched in all of this. I'm just talking based on experience here. But I think it's that, like, when you blame, you kind of accept that you're the victim to a point.
Poor me.
Yeah, yeah, poor me. Or like I'm passing on the thing that I'm resisting myself, or I'm not acknowledging that myself. You know, and I think it's that, like, because you can get into that blame triangle, which is quite a neat piece of, I can't remember who it was who came up with this concept of, if you're in a victim triangle as well, it could be that you're trying to rescue the victim, when instead there's a slightly different way of doing that. Again, like,
it's new to me.
I can't remember that. It's really interesting, because also, like, I always used to revert to the position of the rescuer.
Right.
So try to rescue the victim, when there's a way that you shouldn't be the rescuer, but instead you should try and change that mindset, or change the way that they're thinking about it, so that they can help themselves, because then that's going to last long, because otherwise you just end up in that triangle.
Yeah. The classic is teaching how to fish.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting one, because I think as well, like, it's that self-awareness piece, isn't it? Because I think if you get into a cycle of blaming somebody else or something else for your struggles or what's going on, acknowledge that it's human nature, I'm guessing, to feel that way, but then just to try and get yourself out of it as quickly as possible, and instead think, right, okay, that's happened, what can I do about it, how can I change things?
Yeah, once you've got that awareness about, oh, this is like last time, and you know, you can kind of hold yourself back. It's like somebody I knew said, oh, I'm really sorry I did that, I hope you don't think badly of me, and I'm not normally like that, and please don't take offense at what happened, because it was nothing to do with you. And I said, look, whoa I said, I'm too lazy to take offense, so don't worry, you know, I trust you that you're doing the best that you can do, and things happen, it's fine, you know. Where other people, if things go wrong, you kind of want to go, well, hang on, what happened there? And you've got to have the communication, you've got to have a talk about it. But I say I'm too lazy to get upset.
Well, it's the same with coaching, isn't it? I think when I first started coaching, it was I used to get really upset when a client that I was working with wasn't getting results, or wasn't implementing what we were talking about. And they'd come up with the ideas themselves. They'd, you know, be like, oh, this is a great idea, or this is really going to work, to get behind it, but then they don't do anything about it, and then the cycle is like rinse and repeat, month in, month out. And you're like, oh. And I used to get really upset, and I'm like, right, this is a failing on my part, so I am the person to, you know, like, not I am the person to blame, but I am the person responsible, so how can I turn this around? And then I was just like, hang on a minute, this is a different situation, because I can only play the guide. So you're a coach, you're the guide. I'm not responsible for them taking action, but then I shouldn't feel guilty because they're not doing it, because it's outside of my control. And I can't remember who coined this, and I think I shared it on social media not that long ago, which is that kind of, you know, you've got things outside of your control, things inside of your control, and the bit in between that's where you should be focusing your efforts and your energy.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Because I think I spent so much of I've wasted so much of my life focusing, or trying to focus, or getting worried or upset about the things that you have no control over. Whereas if you just can channel all of that energy into things that you can control, you imagine the things that can happen.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the More to Life group, which are very similar to Landmark, they come up with the philosophy, you know, if you're worried about something, or it's going on in your brain, you're feeling guilty, it's like, is it true, is it false, or don't know?
Yeah.
And from that you take, is it true? Okay, we'll go and do something about it. Is it false? Well, what you're worried about. And if you don't know, you know, why worry? You can't. It's kind of taking things down to really simple ways, so that you can just offload all this burden that's pulling you down, to just get realistic about it, and just deal with what you can take hold of and do something about. I'm going to bring this to a close, because I've got the feeling that you and I could be talking for a lot longer. We're going to have to do this again, my love. We've just scratched the surface here, haven't we? I'm really, really pleased that you're part of the Collaboration Global community. I feel like your energy and your enthusiasm is going to be infectious, and we get some really interesting cross referrals going, as well as getting you presenting at some meetings, and people will be able to learn from your wonderful experience. There are other coaches, consultants, relationship coaches. There are specialists stationery people, all
yes,
sorts of
we need to
people
connect.
that you can have a connect up with and have a chat with. But I know they'll be listening to this podcast. So if you're a collaborator and you're listening, make sure you go on the platform and you contact and you connect up with Charlie straight away. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't know about Collaboration Global, you just have to go to collaborationglobal.org. Check the website out, and all the information and connect buttons are on there. Charlie, if somebody wants to get hold of you and find out about your marketing or the club or both, what's the best way to catch hold of you?
The easiest way, I guess, is to find me on LinkedIn, send me a message there. If you are going to send me a connection request, please personalize it. I get so many people sending me connection requests with no notes, and they just unfortunately fall to the bottom of the list. So yeah, please personalize it, or just send me an email. It's at charlie@charliewhyman.com. Yeah, everything's on there, including details of the club, which is called the Curious Marketing Club. That was my first acknowledgement about the marketing side of things. But yeah, also, so I don't do marketing for you, but I will help equip you and enthuse you about it, because it, like business is an adventure. It should be fun.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it'd be great fun working with you. It'd be fantastic. So hopefully there'll be lots of people getting in touch now. So thank you so much for being my guest today. It's been fascinating. And like I say, I feel like we've just scratched the surface. So look forward to seeing you at the meeting. If you want to come to a meeting and meet Charlie, we're going to be on the 30th of June. Check us on Eventbrite, Facebook, all over the place. Or via the website. You can book onto the meeting via the website as well, and come meet Charlie at a live Zoom meeting on the 30th of June, or the last Tuesday of every month, actually. Hopefully you'll be there. All right, thanks very much. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.